You might be using multiple AI tools to generate code, but you still need to own and manage all your code in your Git repos. Maybe you are still switching to the terminal every time Git gets tricky. You don't have to. IntelliJ IDEA's Git integration is way more powerful than you might think. And in this session, we'll go beyond the basics such as commit and push. We'll talk about rebases, merges, cherry picks, resolving commits, and more. Yes, it's all possible from within your favorite IDE, that is, of course, what else than IntelliJ IDEA. If you ask me how, I would say our speaker today knows better. Hi everyone, thanks for joining in for another episode of IntelliJ IDEA Livestream. I'm your host, Mala Gupta, and today I'm pleased to welcome Justin Clareburt.
Hello, Marla. Good to see you. And hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. I appreciate everyone taking time to come and join this live stream and see what I can teach you. Hopefully there's something in here for everybody, particularly for people who haven't seen all the Git tooling that's in IntelliJ.
Absolutely. We are so looking forward to learn from you. For a quick introduction, Justin is working with Men.io, the company that provides dependency security for IntelliJ IDEA. And in the past, Justin has worked with Google, where he built features for Android Studio. He's also worked as a program manager for Microsoft Visual Studio, where he built the IntelliJ platform keyboard mapping scheme. And fun fact, he has built some interesting Windows keyboard shortcuts, which I think Justin will show us when he would start with his presentation. Right, Justin?
That'd be great. Sure, I'd be happy to.
Yeah. So Justin, before I let you take the stage, let me share some quick housekeeping details for everyone who's watching this stream right now. Everyone, please use the YouTube chat to post your question. Justin will try to answer your question during the session, so you don't have to wait towards the end of the session to post your questions. And Ivan and myself from JetBrains will also try to questions as you post them. The most important question, which is, will the session be recorded? Yes, it will be, and it will be hosted to IntelliJ IDEA's YouTube channel. So if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, now is the time to do that. And if you like today's session, I'm sure you would love the session. Please like this video. And with that, Justin, let me add your screen to the stream. Yes, your stream is already up. And with that, I'll go backstage. If you need me, just call out my name. Have fun.
Thanks, Marla. Thanks very much. And hello, everybody. I'm Justin. I'm here today to show you a bunch of tooling, great things that I use in IntelliJ every day for doing all version control things. Particularly, I guess the theme of today's session is that there's nearly nothing you can't do with your Git inside IntelliJ IDEA. You shouldn't need to go off to the command line, and many things you can do up on the website with the GitHub and the other source control providers. You can do it right within the IDE, and it's great. And some of the tooling is even better than you'll get on the command line and on the web browser. But first, let me just tell you a little bit about, I like keyboard shortcuts, and I happen to be a Windows user, and I find myself forever wanting to move windows around. So I built a little keyboard shortcut tool because I find it very annoying to find little edges and reduce size of windows. So I've got a tool where you can press Alt and the Windows key, and you can expand and you can shrink windows. You can put them in the middle. You can blow them up full size or 3/4 size. Move them to the corners, and you can increase width and height. All these sorts of fancy keyboard shortcuts to make life easier working with multiple windows. One of the neat features is you can actually move it to a virtual desktop as well. So new virtual desktop with Control-Shift-Win, and off it goes and creates a new virtual desktop. If you use Windows and like keyboard shortcuts, you might want to go to my page, github.com, justclay Windows hotkeys, and grab yourself move and resize windows, and you'll be able to move your windows around easily, reducing size, moving them along into quarters, all sorts of fun things. So there you go. In the meantime, let's get into our IntelliJ tooling. Today, I'm going to go over the following things. So first, I'm going to do workflow scenarios of basic Git usage, the sort of stuff that I've been doing with the editor for 20 years now. It's worth pointing out, I guess, that most of the features I'm going to be showing off today have been around in IntelliJ since when I started using it in 2005 with version 4.5, I think it was. Now, of course, some things have been added and improved, but the tooling has always been exceptional, and many features here today have been around for a long time. We'll go through cloning repos, creating branches, making commits, pull requests, merging. And then the second section, we'll take a good look at the diff and compare tools that are built into IntelliJ and all the fancy things you can do with those tools and the flexibility to have them within the editor or outside. Section 3, I'm going to be going over who wrote this code, which is one of the common things where we're looking through the source control to find out who wrote something, when, why, in conjunction with what. If something's there, you're not sure why or how it got there, you can trace the history to find who wrote what, which is the git blame game that we know of. And then section 4, I want to talk about change lists and shelving changes. It's sort of a git branching code commit changing feature that is built into IntelliJ. It's really useful for a bunch of different things. If we have time, there's some advanced features. I'll show you a few more things, including cherry picks, as well as using the diff to diff multiple files and all sorts of other things. So let's see how we go. Marla, anything before I get right into it?
Sorry, Justin, I missed your question.
Just checking if there's any admin before I fire away. Topic number 1.
No, I think we don't have any questions right now, so you are good to go.
Terrific. Okay, I'm going to open up straight into, let's say, here's an IntelliJ window I've got open before. First, I want to talk about cloning a repo. It's very easy to go to a website, let's say Spring Pet Clinic, and we can copy this, get the URL, copy that into the browser, and then we can open a terminal and say git clone, paste. Now that's pretty simple. It's hard to be simpler than that, but in fact, IntelliJ does make it simpler than that, because under the file menu here, file, new, project from version control, here we can click this, and the first thing it asks for a URL. We paste a URL, and it automatically suggests a directory that includes the name of the project. There's a really neat feature here, which is that the shallow clone with a history truncated. If you're working with really large repos, and I've worked with some 8-9 gigabytes, and it can take 2 to 4 hours to pull down a clone. But if you can do a shallow clone, you don't get all the history. You can save gigabytes and many minutes. If you just want to make a quick change, for instance, you don't need all the history. Today, we do care about the history, so I won't be using that. But also in the new repo, you can look at your account here. It's saved my GitHub JustClay account, and it's showing me all the repos that I have today. So I can pick one, let's say the window hotkeys that we just looked at a moment ago, and it suggests a directory, and I can add to that directory and hit clone. Now it will go away. And I'm going to open it in a new window. And just like that, now we can see that it has cloned this repo, the window hotkeys, and I can open up to look at the log, view all the commits and history that have happened to it, but we'll get into that a bit later. So that's the experience of using the new project from version control. Nice little interface there to get up and running. But let's go over and see what it looks like to make some changes, create some branches, commit some changes. For that, let's do it on the Pet Clinic instance that I have open here. So here's something I have open earlier. If we look at the top, it's worth noting that we're on the Spring Pet Clinic project. This widget here tells me which branch I'm in. It's a very powerful widget, the branch widget, which used to live in the old UI in the bottom right corner. When you open it up, it has a few functions like update, commit, and push, new branch. And it also shows you some of the branches you've got access to. The remote, that's the ones that are stored up on the internet. Local, these are the ones that I've pulled down onto my machine. And recent just shows me the top 5 most recent branches. From here, I'm going to make a change first. I've decided I don't want this method to be called find pet. I'm going to call it lose pet. So I'm going to lose pet, and I'm not going to return to the owner. So I've made a couple of changes. I'm also going to delete this block here. And I think I'll just add some fresh code here. Now, if we look at the commit window over here, Alt-0 if you're a Windows user, will open the commit. And it shows me there's a change to this one file. If I double click it, it opens up the diff editor and I can browse through and see the changes that I've made, where I've deleted code, added code. And as you scroll, it scrolls side by side so that the code on the left keeps up with the code on the right. There's a button here where you can say synchronize scrolling, which is on by default. If I turn that off, it means I can scroll one page and then scroll the other side separately. So I have the ability to try to line things up and find methods that were done, that were moved. And then if I synchronize scrolling again, it comes back in place. There are little markers on the side that show me where the changes are. And I can move between the changes using the next, here it is, the next difference, F7. It's good to know where the buttons and the shortcuts are. And Shift F7 takes you back to the previous change. So we've seen our change, looks great. I want to go back to my commit window. I'm happy with this change and I'd like to commit it, but I've decided I'd like to put it on a branch. So first I'm going to go here and create a new branch. You can also create folders when you're creating a branch. So I might create a folder for just clay changes, and then I might say broke pet controller might be my branch. And then if I could create, it will now create a new branch. Check out the branch. And now it shows me at the top here that I'm on the just clay pet broke pet controller. And it lists them here in my recent. It's on my local. It is not up on the remote because I haven't pushed it, but it's a local branch. You can do a lot locally before you need to push anything up. So now I'm going to check this change in. So I check this file, say that it's the one I want to put in, and I'll provide a commit message. Now, again, I want to compare this to the Git command experience. A lot of pros out there, like, I got this, I'll go to the terminal, I'll write git commit -m and put a message. Well, I think that's a lot of characters when all you have to do is type a message in here, broke the controller, and then I can press Control Enter, which will hit this button, or Alt P, which hits commit and push. But for now, I'm just going to make a commit there. Now, check it out. I think I put a spelling mistake in the message. This is a feature I want to show, a little gem, is if we go now to the Git log, which is Alt-9, and it shows you all the branches I've got. If we look at the top, we can see this is the commit that I just put in. I'm working on a small window. Most people will work with larger windows, but you can see I have a mistake there. I can just easily right-click on the commit, and I can edit the commit message, or F2. And now I can fix that up and press OK. And try doing that on the command line. So that's one of the neat little things you can do. And it shows that the commit message has changed. Very nice. So meanwhile, we have made a change, created a branch, committed the change, and pushed. Well, actually, we haven't pushed it. Let's push it now. So if we look, press Control-Shift-K or Git push, it shows that we've got one commit that we want to push, and it's going to create a branch up on the origin, up on the internet. This could take a second or two. You might lose me. So here goes. And now it's pushing, and it shows down the bottom that it's pushing my new branch with its commit up to GitHub. Right, now it's suggested we could create a pull request, and we will come back to that later. And there's a whole pull request bar for it. But for now, let's go on to some more advanced usage. So we've done clone a new branch. We added a file, commit and push. Let's talk about merging, rebasing, deleting branches. And for this, I want to show you a little bit of a workflow. Let's say I decide to create a new branch for a feature I'm working on. I might even put it in a subdirectory feature, and I'll say rename product. So I can just create a branch like that. And now I have this branch. I'm going to go and make some changes all over the place. I'm going to delete some stuff from here. I'm going to duplicate this. I've got another file here. I'll duplicate that, delete these people here, and make a change over here. So now if I go and have a look at the changes, it shows me that I've changed 2 files, and it's put the directory in writing across here. It's quite neat UI. It saves a lot of space. But sometimes I like to view them with a directory hierarchy. So you can hit this I here and say group by directory with Control-Alt-P, like path. So now it's grouped them in their folders, which means that if I want to make other changes, you can then close up your test folders and your other code and group it however you like. But if you have a lot of files, you can press Control-Alt-P again and just bring it back to the flat structure. I'm going to commit these changes here into this new branch. So first, made more changes, and I'll commit and push using this button here. So first it does the commit, found some errors because I broke the code, but I will commit and push anyway. And now it's offering to push that branch. So now we've got another branch. Let's see if we can go take a look at this branch on GitHub. So if we look at the remote here, we can see that now it has been pushed up to GitHub, broke pet controller, and here's the new feature, rename product. Now, what we can do is we can start merging these branches. Let's say I go back to the broke pet controller. Oh, I did that too quickly, but it was to find the branch in the menu, choose checkout from the list. And now I want to take the changes that I made in the other branch and bring them into this branch. So I go and find the other branch, rename product, and I fly out the menu and I say, I want to merge or rebase. So I don't want anyone to know that I took these changes, so I'm going to rebase. And now all those changes that I made on that branch will come into this branch. And if we have a look at the Git menu here, we can see now on this feature branch at the top, we've got some of the code that we took in from the other branch there. And you can see over here the changes. It's a bit hard to view like this, so I'm going to teach you now about the diff view in the editor. I want to see this change, so I can just double click it and it opens in my tiny little editor. Control-Shift F12, you can get rid of all the other windows, so you can now see it full screen. There's another way to look at it though, which is to right-click on the tab and say Show Diff in Separate Window. And when you do that, it comes up much larger. You can then maximize it, and you can get rid of it by pressing the Escape key. Now, anytime I ask for a diff, it's going to come up in a new window, and I can press Escape. And that's going to work better for me in this session. But it's worth knowing that you can then set it back in the settings here and say Show Diff in Editor tab. And now it comes back in here. And anytime I open up another diff, it opens up in the same Editor tab. And so it's a little bit of a side note. It's interesting here because historically, IntelliJ used the pop-up mode. Visual Studio used this internal one. IntelliJ now has the ability to do both. It's very flexible, so you can use it at your preference. Okay, so let's see, where are we checking in? So merge, rebase, delete branches. Oh, okay, so what we did is we took 2 branches and I rebased one from the other. But of course, you can also merge. Let's say I go to my demo 1 project and I check that out. Now I want to bring in all the changes I've had from both of those branches. So I've just switched across. And now I go and I'll say, okay, I want the broken pet controller, and I'm going to merge all those changes here. And like that, it has merged them. And it's offered to delete the pet controller, which of course is we can do now. But I just want to show that you can also do it up here. You come to your local, you choose it, and then you say delete. So we cover a lot of branch operations there, from creating branches, rebasing, merging. I didn't create a merge conflict. If you do, it comes up with a great 3-way screen. We might find one of those later on. But for now, let's check back in. Okay, so that's the basics of everyday usage of creating branches and working with branches, commits and pushes, rebase. There's Control-T update, of course, pulls down the changes from from the internet. That one's not currently tracked. So I'm going to switch back to the main branch, check out, and we're back. And all the changes and broken things are behind us. I can press Control-T to see if there's been any changes that anyone's made while I've been away. And all files are up to date. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the pull request screen. It's quite neat. There's this pull request view. So you can view, let's see what was the most recently merged pull requests. Here we have one called Add Docs, and I can open that up, and it shows that I created a commit and I merged the commit in. Shows I can have a look at the file and see the changes that were made on that file. It shows that there were 2 commits. And if I want to see this on GitHub, I can press the number here, and it will open up this pull request in my GitHub web browser. Oh, here we come. And so you can see the pull request, the same information here, including the files changed, showing here. But I didn't have to go into the web browser to see all this information. You can also show me closed requests, and you can show open requests. It happens, there's one open request at the moment, but I'll show you how we can open up another one. Hit the plus button, and it offers you which branch you want to connect. And I wanted to say, I might want to take my rename product branch, and I'll push that into, I can even choose what I push it into, and I'm going to push it into my demo. So now I've created a pull request from one branch into another branch. It knows the different files that have changed, and I can give it a description here. If your repo has a template when you create a new pull request, that template appears here as well. So bringing in bad code, and then here I can create the pull request or create it in draft mode, which is nice if you're not ready for people to see it. So all these same features that you would otherwise be doing up on the GitHub interface here on the web browser, you can do inside this window. Pretty neat. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and create a pull request. And it's done. So we've got a pull request. And if I go and look at the pull request on my fork, you can see there it is, number 4. And it's got all the detail there of the bad commits that I pushed in, the bad code. So those are the 2 commits that we now have a pull request up on GitHub. I wonder if I can merge it. Merge review. So now I can merge it, and just like any other pull request, you can do a normal merge, or you can do a squash and merge, which will mean those 2 commits get collapsed as if they were one. So I'm going to try that, squash and merge. It provides me with a template of what to write about the commit. That looks good. And I'll say merge. And once it's done that, I won't need that branch anymore. And so I can go and delete that branch. So now it's merged, you can see. And that's it. So we've just done a bit of overview then on the, let me bring back the slides so we can see where we're at. View the pull requests. You can create a pull request. You can merge a pull request. Everything, all within the IDE. And that's the theme of today's session. So before I move on any further, just checking in with Marla. Any questions from the crowd?
Yes, Justin, we have a couple of questions. So the first question is from Maya, and she's asking, how do you check out a repo from GitHub, but use SSH instead of HTTPS? I always use the command line interface because I prefer SSH.
Oh, that's interesting. And until recently, I used to always use the command line to check out. It was the one thing I would do on the command line, because I'd go copy and I'd just say git clone, and I'd paste it. And whether that was SSH or HTTP, they both worked. But as an experiment, why don't we see if we can check out with SSH? So the URL here doesn't specify that it has to be HTTP. So if I choose SSH and I copy this, git at GitHub, and it's got my fork, copy URL. We come back in here. Let's see what happens if I paste that in. Pet clinic test. clone. So I used the SSH. The authenticity of GitHub can't be established. Key is not known by any. I guess we need a certificate if we're going to use SSH, and I haven't set myself up for that. But you might have success with it, so it could work for you, no problem, if you have the authentication to do that.
We also have Ivan from JetBrains on the chat, and let's see if we can have an answer to this during the session in the chat. I'll go to the next. Yes, I'll go to the next question. This is by Matt, and he's asking, what's the difference between shelf and stash? When would you use one over the other?
I'm really glad you asked that question. Thank you, because I wasn't sure if I should talk about it. But when I get to that in section 4, I will definitely cover that. The short answer is that stash is related.
Okay,
yeah, we'll come back to that.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So there's another question by Shifali, and then I'll let you move on with your session. She's asking, can you please explain rebase A onto B means we are putting code from A to B or B to A? Same for merge, like merge A into B means we are putting code from A to B or from B to A.
Okay, that's fine. It's a good basic Git question. Let's go over it because it's a little bit anti-intuitive, the wording and terminology. So I'll close off these pull requests. Let's get some sense and order back here. So let's have a look. So first, how do I put it? So if I want to, first I want to get off the main branch because I don't want to make any of these changes in main. So I'm going to go to demo 1 checkout. But now say somebody has made changes on main and I want to bring those changes in, which is a very common use case. You're on your own branch, but somebody's made changes to main and you've pulled those in. Now, when you are on the branch you want to bring it into, so I'm now on demo 1 and I want to take changes from main, I choose main and then I say rebase onto main. And that's really weird terminology. Go talk to the Git people about it. But it will rebase my demo branch onto as if it had come off main, and so that would bring main code in. Now merge main into, that's much more clear wording, and that's what it does. It will bring main into my branch, but rebase onto is saying the same thing. It will bring the code from that. So if I wanted to go the other way around, if I wanted to take demo stuff and bring it into main, I would first have to switch over to the main branch, and I'll wait for that, and then I would then go to the stuff I want to get, and I'd say rebase this onto or merge this into, and that will bring the demo code into this one. So I hope that answers the question. The wording rebase onto threw me for a while too, but that's how it works.
Thank you so much. And one of the viewers really liked how you experimented with the SSH part, not knowing the outcome. So that's a thumbs up. So thank you so much.
That's how I learned everything I know about IntelliJ. It's that and the tip of the day, I would say. Tip of the day is my hot tip. Always turn it on. It got to the point where I think I've learned all the tips now, but it's a really nice way of learning things. Okay, is there more questions or shall we move forward?
There are more questions, but I'll let you move forward with your session. We'll take up maybe the rest later.
Okay, this next one might be a bit quicker. I just want to talk a bit about the 2 different windows and some things we can do with them. So let's look at the commit tool window. I'll show you that it's modal and pop-up, and have a look at the message history and the group by folder. So I've already shown a bit about the group by folder. I don't have any changes here. Maybe I can bring some in. I'm cheating here. I've got something on my shelf and I'm going to unshelve those changes, which means I'm going to bring in some changes I made and I'm going to put them straight here. Okay, so I did show you that we can group by folders and group by files. But look at this. If I want to make these commits and I'm like, oh, I'm going to make changes to rename. And I know I've typed this before. There's a little button here, commit message history, Control M. And when you press that button, it shows you a history of all the last things you type. Revert to old file. And so if you've pasted a message or you're going to reuse a commit that you've had before, you can just pull it from the history. And that's kind of neat. Something else I discovered is that there's a button for amend. If you check amend, it will actually update the last commit so that it includes new changes that you forgot to put in. So that's pretty fancy. The the other thing I wanted to point out is, yeah, right, here we go. So I said back in the old days, if you wanted to make changes, it came up in a pop-up window. But also, I want to show you this. We can take the commit window here and move it down the bottom here. Click and drag on the icon, move it to the bottom, and now it appears right along the bottom, which is a different view. So you can expand it out like this. You can see the folders and files, and it can sit at the bottom. We've now moved in the new structure for it being horizontal layout, which is great if you've got lots of files and they'll string down the bottom. So that's just something I wanted to show you. But there's also the ability to have it pop out completely. And the best way I know how to find that is to press Shift and search for non-modal, because I couldn't find a button for this. But you can have a non-modal commit message dialog. And now it's gone. So on, non-modal, off. Okay, so now if I want to commit something, I press Control K, and it brings up this separate window. And I'm going to use my resizing tools to make that a bit bigger. And it shows you the same thing, but instead of it being docked to a side window, I've got the diff of the file will show up down the bottom here. And I've got some checkboxes over here that are available to me that are shown behind a settings icon. So this is what the old interface used to look like. And if you want to, you can keep using that one. And that's known as the non-modal. But otherwise, we can set it back. I think this button here, no, I'm going to take that off, and we go back to the non-modal, and now we have it in a separate window over here. So just wanted to point that out. Similarly, the diff window, we had a look at this before. Diff windows appear all over the place. Even right here, there's a diff window in the bottom corner. Every time I touch a file, it shows me the diff inside that file. It's hard to see here, but so I'm going to open it up into this window. And as I demonstrated before, you can make that pop up as well. So you right-click the tab here, and you say Show Diff in Separate Window. And from then on, you only need to press Escape to close it, and it'll keep opening in a window. And to push it back, you hit this setting and say Show Diff in Editor tab. But it's worth noting that you can actually edit in a diff window. If I see something and I didn't like the change, I'm like, wait, I wanted that to be 100. Oh, some of them, at least, if you're looking at your own code, you can edit inside the diff window, and that's handy. The other part is that unified view and sync scrolling. So I showed sync scrolling, but I'll show you the unified view. Again, let's see if I can bring up a change that I've made. Unified view, right. So I'm looking at this over here. There's a button for side by side, which is what it is now, or I say unified viewer, and that puts changes on top of each other. So you can get that different view if you're looking to see how one line changes. And maybe that's easier for you to see. And you can use these arrows here to revert or unselect certain changes. When your screen's big enough, side by side is often a good choice. You can use these little arrows here to reset. Let's say I didn't mean to make this change. I use this arrow and I push it across. And I don't like this change either, so I'll push that across too. And now it tells me contents are identical. We finished with that file. So those are a couple of little things I wanted to point out. That's it for that. Any other questions before I move forward onto who wrote this code?
Yes, there are a couple of questions. Let me pull them up.
Okay.
Right. I really like how people try to help when they have answers for the other questions. So like this one. Yes. And Ivan is also answering questions. He answered to the questions from Shefali and the other person. And Xavier answered Rebase, replace the commits, so it can be dangerous. And there's another question where, so this is a question, and Grover is asking, I have changes in a branch, and when I jump to another branch, the changes are passed to that branch. Is there any way to keep the changes in the branch I choose without using stash or shelf?
Oh, I mean, that's what shelving's for. let's think. It's a challenge. I was going to say, I often will shelve my changes to change a branch and then bring them back again. You could commit the changes, then they're not going to be on the other branch. I'll think about that one.
Okay. There's another question by Victor, and he's asking, when we resolve conflicts, the sites are called theirs and yours. What do they mean?
Sorry, what's the question?
When we resolve the conflicts, the merge conflicts, the sites are called theirs and yours. And what do they mean?
Oh, yeah. Theirs is the one you're bringing in. Yours is the one you have on your local. So if you have some code on your local and you're trying to merge a pull request or merge some code in, and it shows theirs and yours is the one you're bringing in. And theirs is, sorry, yours is the one you have, theirs is the one you're bringing in.
The terminology is quite tricky.
Yeah. And depending on the order, I always just have to look sometimes at the commit number. I get it wrong a lot of the time. I actually look at the code and like, hang on a sec, was this one, was that one?
This is the last question that I'll take before I let you move forward. So we have a question. Can you switch the Windows side in the different view or show changes by method in the different view? The way the question is framed.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Good point. Show changes. Changes can go over this side as well. It can sit down the bottom. So that way, if you've got your Git window over here, you can have your changes over there if you've got a big enough screen. In fact, let's demonstrate what that might look like on a smaller screen. I think, so using Alt-Shift-minus, I can pretend that I've got a bigger screen just so you can see how it looks. Then you can have your commit window flying in and out of the right. You could have it up the top here, so it sits over there. Yes, so it's beautifully flexible. The default position is second after project. I like that because I'm usually either looking at my files or project. By the way, the width of this bar here, hot tip for anyone listening in, if you're an IntelliJ Pro user, if you want to move the size of this bar, it's Control-Shift-Alt left. And you can also see that, you can also see it in the window tooltips, by the way, active tool window. If you move to resize, here it is. Look, resize, stretch left, stretch right. Every key on the keyboard with left and right, you can actually move these windows in and out, which is nice. It also works on the bottom here. Control-Alt-Shift up and down brings these windows up and down. And if you press Control-Shift single quote, it maximizes it and brings it back. So handy shortcuts, by the way.
Yes.
Hope that answered the person's question about the moving the commit tool window.
Yes. And now I'll let you move forward with your session. Thank you so much.
That was fun. Okay. Thank you. Who wrote this code? Okay. You find some code. You're like, hang on a sec. This looks weird. Why is this there? Can I delete it? Who made this mistake? Let's go see what we can do about searching into code hunting. Here, let's find something we prepared. I need more screens, so I'm going to maximize that out a bit. So I'm looking through here. Let's see, maybe I want to go to my owner controller. And I was like, oh, okay, boy, this is some pretty code. Who wrote this code? Well, firstly, notice that if you've enabled code authors, it'll show you the history of the person who most recently modified this method. And it says here, forgive my pronunciation, Yiyong Ding +1, because there were two authors of this method here. By clicking it, it's opened the annotation bar, but I'm going to demonstrate how we do that normally. If you right-click in the gutter here, choose
just
annotate.
If you could increase the font size, it would be legible at present.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's not going to help. That's too much. All right, there we go. Now, the text doesn't really matter. What does matter is that when you right-click on the bar, you can choose Annotate with Git Blame. Now, whose fault is this? And then it shows you the most recent committer of every line. It uses brighter colors for more recent. So these changes in 2024, they're a brighter color than the changes in 2022. And if you go back to 2009, they're dark. So you can sort of see where the more interesting changes were. And then if I want to find out more about this method here, find owner, I can hover and it shows me the commit and then I can actually click the commit and it opens up the Git log window. And then it shows me all the different changes that have occurred here. At this point, I really need more room on my screen, so I'm going to decrease font size a little bit. You don't really need to read the names. You just get to see what's happening. So I can pick on this row here, and it highlights exactly the commit that happened, the file it happened in. And if I open that up, I can see changes here, right there, and find owner. It's really fascinating, very powerful way of drilling down to see what other changes happened when that change was made. So you can now see the full history of this commit that occurred at that point in time. So you can see that, and the information about that commit as well. The reason the commit was made, it's all showing up here. And so that's a nice way to understand who wrote what, where, and when. You can drill infinitely down to find out all sorts of stuff. But if you're interested in changes on one page, the file history is really useful. So I like to right-click on a file and say Git, and then the Git menu, you choose Show History. And now it opens, again, in this amazing Git tool window that's been giving us everything so far. Now we have the file history for just that file. And if I click through the history, you can see each change that was made at each point in time. Now, I want to show you something that's interesting you can do here. Let's say I click right down here to the last change by Keon Cho. And now it's showing me everything that's different in this change to what I have now. But if I don't want to see the changes with this, let's say what happened between this change here and this change here, I just need to select 2 by holding the control key, and it automatically provides a complete diff of all the changes from this point here to this point there. And then you can have a better look and see whether or not the method you're interested in has changed. Like, well, I don't see it here, so it wasn't changed there. And you can keep hunting, you can keep looking through the different diffs until you can find when something changed. Aha, this is where they must have introduced find owner. So now I know it's between these two, and I can keep refining my search until I can find exactly the right commit where something happens. So that's just another way you can use the Git history without annotations over here. Just going to flick to see if I've mentioned. So the diff margin is in the editor. Git blame. Oh, let's talk about moving around. If I make some changes, first I'll turn off this. Let's say I make a bunch of changes, and I think I have already. I'm going to delete this method here, and I'm going to modify this one here. And I'm going to duplicate these rows here. Now, I can go between changes. If it's a long file, I'll say, where was that last change? I can press Control-Shift-Alt down and go straight to the first change, and it opens up what the diff is. I can press it again to get the next change. And here you can see I deleted code, I added code, and at each point it shows me in these little bars here what changed. So you can see it's even highlighted that it changed this word. And I can copy this. This is what I want to show. You can open up these diffs and you can copy what did the code used to be? I need to put this method somewhere else. You can copy portions of it or copy the whole thing. And if you don't like it, you can just revert that code by hitting this rollback on that line. Or, as you can see from the shortcut, you can press Control-Alt-Z or Control-Alt-Z. And so I come straight down to this shortcut and press Control-Alt-Z, and it reverts it. And so that's how you can move around using these little change markers. Control-0 opens the changes window, and then I can also right-click on this whole file and say, I don't want any of these changes. I go Git, rollback, Control-Alt-Z, the whole file. It pops up to make sure, is this what you want? I'm like, yeah, I've changed my mind. Now, instead, I'm going to just roll back some changes. So if I open up this file, I want to point out something really interesting. Is here, I can make more edits. So if I say I want to edit this part here, one big change, but I want them in different commits. So I can just uncheck this one here, and it won't be included when I make a commit. And then later, when this has been committed, I can commit this as a separate part. And that's really cool, especially if you've been refactoring a file while you made some changes. And you know that you want all your refactorings in one commit, your changes in another. but they're right here. So you can undo certain parts. They stay changed, but they won't be included in the next commit. And then when you check the box, they will be included in the commit. So that's worth knowing about. File history, did that blame? Right, that's who wrote this code. Questions on that? Lots of fun. Okay, and when you press asterisk, it does auto expand of folders, by the way. If you've got a numpad, one of these keyboards, a numpad asterisk, hit the minus expands and numpad expands, so asterisk does. So I'm going to move on now, if there's no other questions. Changelist, this is good stuff. Okay, everybody pay attention. I'm going to demonstrate Changelists now, and I'll also talk about stash versus shelf. But first, let's talk about Changelists. So you can see that I've made changes to a bunch of different files, 3 files in this case. But I realized I don't want to push my tests. I want to deal with those separately. So I can right-click on this file and say, move to another change list. And I'll say, these are my test changes. It creates a change list, which is a grouping of changes. And so now I've got my regular changes and my test changes. That way, if I want to, I can easily select and commit one bunch while leaving another bunch not committed. I'd like to make more changes. But I won't change my build Gradle file. Let's see if it maybe change some stuff here. Deleting code's fun. Maybe make a change here and have some changes and some deletes here. Now, if I have a look at all the changes, we should have a few more. And I've decided that these 2 changes to the owner, I want these to be separate. So I can put these in another change list and say owner changes. That way, later, if I decide that I'm going to change branches like somebody asked earlier, but I don't want these changes to go. I want to clear this stuff out. I want to go right back to what I was doing before. I can then select this and say shelf changes. This will undo those changes and lock them away so that I can bring them back later. So I say shelf changes. It pops up, lets me check what I want. And again, I can use individual selections of these files. So I can just shelve portions of the change, which is super cool. And it's already suggested owner changes because it took that from the change list name. And I'll say shelf changes. So I did that. And now we have up the top here, there's commit, and over here is the shelf. And here's a bunch of changes. Over here, those changes have gone, but it left behind one change. It left behind this one change that I unchecked. Pretty cool, huh? Then when I change branches, let's say I go into my demo 1, hold now. Smart checkout. Oh, I've been breaking things. Don't check out. Actually, I will smart checkout though. No, I'll take this branch here. Smart checkout. IntelliJ saves me all the time. Dumb things I do. Okay, so now we've changed branches. And as the viewer noted earlier, the changes that I've made come through, and that's a feature because they're just changes. You can revert them easily just by checking and saying right-click, revert, roll back. But at this point, I want to go and get these changes I made earlier and unshelve. And now it will apply all these changes to my new branch here, well, to the changes that I can commit. And so that's a bit of, there's one really good, well, there's several good reasons to use change lists. But one really interesting one is if you have local files that have different environment settings, like you've got your local, your test, your dev, staging, prod, and you're trying different environments, maybe with GitHub, Bitbucket, all sorts of different things. You want to swap in and out changes onto one settings file. You can put each of those shelved as a separate shelf with changes and then just bring them in when you want to try different environments. And while we're talking about that, I want to point out, let's say I make changes to this license here, and I delete the first few paragraphs, but I don't want to commit this. I don't ever want changes to the license to be committed. So here's what you can do: is you can right-click here on the file and say git. And what we want to do is we want to add this to the git ignore. Oops, hang on. Where's my git ignore? Stage freeze. Let's do it from the commit window. Here's the license. I want to be able to add this to git ignore. So I right click on it here. Where's my git ignore? My bad. I flubbed. I'm unable to find it, but typically there's the option to add a file to git ignore, so you never get to see it again. I do that a lot. Sorry, I've been unable to show you that today. Then it doesn't show up in the lists. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. So using Changelists, separate logical parts of work, shelving, good with experiments, handy for swapping environment settings. And now I want to answer the question about stash versus shelf. Now, stash is off by default. Stash is a Git mechanism for making it's like a shelf. It's taking a bunch of changes and it pushes them into Git on your local device. And that's fine. You can then keep adding things to those stages. The shelving is different in that it's an IntelliJ internal feature. I don't know the internal mechanisms of how it works, but I believe it does not use the Git mechanism. It sort of manages it itself. Someone from JetBrains Online might be able to provide more information than that. I've always been very happy with using Changelists and shelves. They work really nicely. So that is topic 4. And I know we've only got a few minutes left. So how about we preview advanced features? Really quickly, let's take a look. Sometimes I've made a bunch of changes and I really need to go back a lot. You can go into the command git reset hard, reset soft to keep the changes and recommit. You can do those things here in the window. You can find in the log, and I didn't go over this, by the way, in the Git window, there's the console. And all along, every time I've been making it using the UI, it's been recording what the actual Git commands are. They're often a little bit verbose, but basically you can see we've done a git add, git remove, git checkout. We've got git restore, git checkout, git add, remove. So these are the commands that you wouldn't want to be typing all day, although I know that some pro developers like to think they're very cool because they do. Don't be like them. Just use the tools that are in your hands. So what was I showing? Right, but if we find the commit and say, okay, I don't want any of this stuff, it was all terrible, I want to go right back to Dave Sayers' last commit. You can right click here and you can get that whole commit there. Actually, we're on a file history. I want to take a look at the log here. So if I come back to here, this one here, you can now reset the current branch to here. And it asks you if you want to do it hard, which means get rid of all changes, go back as if it's there. Soft, which will keep all the changes that have occurred since then. So you'll be able to see them and compare them. And there's a mixture and keep. You can choose that. I'm not going to do that now, but it is very effective at rolling back to a previous place. Then you can add new commits and overwrite bad history. You can also take a history from a file and just get it. So let's say I'm looking at the versions of this one. I can just get this revision right now, and it will override the one that I have in my file. So you can pluck and place. And that's where the cherry pick comes in. If there's a change from a branch that you never accepted but you really want, you can right-click and just say cherry pick. And that will take that commit off one branch and put it somewhere else. I'm having problems because I've got some merge conflict problems, but those are a few advanced features that I want to go over. And if there's 1 minute left, you can actually compare the clipboard, for instance, which is quite interesting. Let's say I have this file and I copy that and then I revert the whole file using git rollback. There's this file here. Hold on. No, I hadn't made any changes. So now I make some changes and I had copied this file. So now if I find this file in the editor, project view, I can right click and say compare with, and I should be able to compare it with what's in the clipboard. Compare with revision, compare with failed demo on that one. I'll let it slide. We're getting late in the hour, so I'm going to stop there. We did go over how you can compare multiple versions in the history, and you can also compare between branches too. But so those are some fun things for everybody to play around with. You can actually, I think, choose 2 branches here, compare branches, and it shows you all the differences between those branches if they come up. So lots of advanced features you can get into. Saves you from having to use the command line and do everything in the UI. So I hope you saw that. Oh, but the one really cool feature I want to point out is if I do want to find it, I can just right-click here and say Git and say open in. So open in GitHub. This is my favorite feature. I only found it 2 weeks ago when my friend Elena shared this with me. But you can right-click anywhere in the tree here and say open in GitHub, and it will take you to the GitHub web UI right there, so you can find it, play around. So I love that feature. It's a nice little thing. There it is. So that basically brings us to the end of my presentation. I hope everybody got something out of that. I'm here for more questions if there's more time.
First of all, thank you, Justin. That was a great session, and we had tons of questions coming in, and Ivan from JetBrains was answering a lot of those questions. So I have just one question for you, and before we start with the Q&A session, just one. Everyone who's watching the session, please use the QR code on your screen or use the link which is displayed on the screen and share your feedback on the session. I'm sure you liked the session. I obviously did. And we do take a note of the feedback to improve the sessions that we schedule for our future live streams. And with that, I will talk about the question that I have for you. This is by Andrea, and it is the question is it possible to use Git worktree and Git submodule?
Git worktree and Git submodule.
Yes.
I have not heard of those things before. Sorry.
Okay.
No idea.
No worries. So this is the last comment that I would use. It's about Andreas, and he said, I use the IntelliJ Git commands all the time, but then I forget the commands when I'm at the command line. So
what commands? I don't understand what that means. Git commands, IntelliJ Git commands. I mean, the features, the UI, a lot of it is pressing buttons.
I guess it's about when you are using the UI within IntelliJ IDEA, you forget the actual commands if you are at the command line. So it's like kind of
yeah. Here's the fun thing. I've been using this tooling for 20 years now, and I've never needed much of learning the Git command line. It's all right there. In fact, fun story. It's worth noting that when I was working on Visual Studio at Microsoft, I used to use IntelliJ to load the project just so that I could do all my version control using IntelliJ's version control tools while I was coding on other products. It's just so useful.
So a couple of thank you messages. Ehsan says, this was a great presentation. And Felix, thanks for the amazing presentation. And another message by Isrid Jahan, and she says, thanks for the insightful session. Great to know the smart ways of using Git with IntelliJ. Big applause to Justin. So thank you so much, Justin. Had same thing with Git ignore. Okay. So I think that's a question and not a comment. Had the same thing with Git ignore. I could not find recently, maybe a bug.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's usually you just right-click a file and say, add to Git ignore. But I couldn't see it, and I'm disappointed. I do like to use that. It's a fantastic feature. And oh well, you get that. Well, and also somebody asked about best practices with using multiple Git repositories. I don't know. One thing I used to do is I used to always check differences on every file before I create a commit, because in case you did something bad. But I don't know. Just be careful.
And I'll show you a couple of more thank you messages. This is by Emre. Thank you for the great presentation.
Thanks, Emre.
Again, and this is because Ivan was asking a lot of questions. So that's thanks for Ivan from Andrea. Okay. So this is more for Ivan to answer. Yes, we are working on this, but we don't have a date for the release yet. Vaibhav says, thank you for the great demo. Again, another thank you and another thank you. So thank you so much, Justin. It was a great session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Good to see everyone.
And yes, thanks everyone for joining in, for asking questions, for being able to learn and answering questions. And you can see the socials to the IntelliJ IDEA and for Justin all on your screen right now. You can send us a message. You can connect with Justin for any questions that you might have. And stay tuned for our next session, which is on 25th June on Vector API by Daniel. And until then, thanks for joining. Keep learning, and thank you. And Justin, before we close the stream, any closing comments from you if you want to say anything?
No, just thank you very much for your time and listening in. I hope everyone got something good out of it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.